Chapter 15. The Gathering of the Clouds. Now we will return to Bilbo and the dwarves. All night one of them had watched, but when morning came, they had neither heard nor seen any sign of danger. But ever more thickly the birds were gathering. Their companies came flying from the south, and the crows that still lived about the mountain were wheeling and crying unceasingly above.
"Something strange is happening," said Thorin. "The time is gone for the autumn wanderings, and these are the birds that dwell away in the lands. There are starlings and a flock of finches, and far off there are many a carrion bird, as if a battle were afoot."
Suddenly, Bilbo pointed. There's the old thrush again," he cried. "He seems to have escaped when Smaug smashed the mountainside. But I don't suppose the snails have." Sure enough, the old thrush was there, and as Bilbo pointed, he flew towards them and perched on a stone nearby. Then he fluttered his wings and sang, and then he cocked his head on one side as if to listen, and again he sang, and again he listened. "I believe he's trying to tell us something," said Balin, "but I cannot follow the speech of such birds. It is very quick and difficult. Can you make it out, Mr. Baggins?" Not very well," said Bilbo. As a matter of fact, he could make nothing of it at all. "But the old fellow seems very excited." "I only wish he was a raven," said Balin. "I thought you did not like them. You seemed very shy of them when they came this way before." "Those were crows. Nasty, suspicion-looking creatures at that, and rude as well. You must have heard the ugly names they were calling us. But ravens are different. There used to be great friendship between them and the people of Thorir, and they often brought us secret news and reward of such bright things as they coveted to hide in their dwellings. They live many a year, and their memories are long, and they hand on their wisdom to their children. I knew many among ravens of the rocks when I was a dwarf lad. The very heights was once named Ravenhill, because there was a wise and famous pair, old Kark and his wife, that lived here above the guard chamber. But I don't suppose that any of that ancient breed now linger here." No sooner than he had finished speaking than the old thrush gave a loud call and immediately flew away. "We may not have understood him, but that bird understands us, I am sure," said Balin. "Keep watch now, and see what happens." Before long there was a fluttering of wings, and back came the thrush, and with him came a most decrepit old bird. He was getting blind, he could hardly fly, and the top of his head was bald. He was an aged raven of great size. He alighted stiffly on the ground before them, slowly flapping his wings, and bobbed towards Thorin.
"Oh, Thorin, son of Thrain, and Balin, son of Fundin," he croaked,
and Bilbo could understand what he said, for he was using ordinary language and not bird speak.
"I am Roic, son of Kark. Kark is dead, but he was well known to you once. It is 150 years and 350 since I came out of the egg, but I do not forget what my father told me. Now I am the chief of the great ravens of the mountain. We are few, but we remember still the kings that were of old. Most of my people are abroad, for there are great tidings in the south. Some are tidings of joy to you, and some you will think not so good. Behold, the birds are gathering back again to the mountain and to the dale from the south, east, and west, for word has gone out that Smaug is dead." Dead? Shouted the dwarves. "Dead? Then we need not be in needless fear, and the treasure is ours." They all sprang up and began to caper about for joy. "Yes, dead," said Roark. "The thrush, may his feathers never fall, saw him die, and we may trust his words. He saw them all fall in the battle with the men of Esgaroth the third night, back now at the rising of the moon." It was some time before Thorin could bring the dwarves to be silent and listen to the raven's news. At length, when he had told all the tale of the battle, he went on. So much for joy, Thorin Oakenshield. You may go back to your halls in safety. All the treasure is yours, for the moment. But many are gathering hither besides these birds. The news of the death of the Guardian has already gone far and wide, and the legend of the Relf of Thror has not lost in the telling during the many years. Many are eager for a share of the spoil. Already a host of elves is on their way, and carrion birds are with them, hoping for battle and slaughter. By the lake, men murmur, and their sorrows are due to the dwarves, for they are homeless, and many have died, and Smaug has destroyed their town. They too think they've to find amends in your treasure, whether you alive or dead. Your wisdom must beside your course, but 13 is a small remnant of the great folk of Durin that once dwelt here, and now are scattered far. If you will listen to my counsel, you will not trust the master of the lakemen, but rather him that shot the dragon with the bow. Bard is he, of the race of Dale, and the line of Girion. He was a grim man, but true. We would have peace once among dwarves and men and elves after the long desolation, but it may cost you dear in gold. I have spoken. Then Thorin burst forth in anger. Our thanks, Rorik Kark's son. You and your people shall not be forgotten, but none of our gold shall thieves take or the violent carry off while we are alive. If you would earn our thanks still more, bring us news of any you draw near, and I would beg of you, if any of you are still young and strong of wing, they would send messengers to our kin in the mountains of the north, both west from here and east, and tell them of our plight. But specially, go to my cousin Dane in the Iron Hills, for he has many people well armed, and well nearest is placed. Bid him hasten. I will not say if this counsel is good or bad, croaked Rorik, but I will do what can be done. Then off he slowly flew. Back now to the mountain, cried Thorin. We have little time to lose. And little food to use, cried Bilbo, always practical on such points. In any case, he felt the adventure was, properly speaking, over with the death of the dragon, in which he was much mistaken, and he would have given away most of his share of the profits for the peaceful winding up of these affairs. Back to the mountain, they cried the dwarves, as if not heard him, so back he had to go with them. As you have heard of some of the events already, you expect that the dwarves still had some days before them. They explored the caverns once more, and they found, as they expected, that only the front gate remained open. All other gates, except of course the small secret door, had long been broken and blocked by Smaug, and no sign of them remained. So now they began to labor hard in fortifying the main entrance, and in making a new path that led from it. Tools were found in plenty that miners and quarriers and builders of old had used, and at such work the dwarves were still very skilled. As they worked, the ravens brought them constant tidings. In this way that they learned that the Elven King had turned aside from the lake, and they still had breathing space, and were wandering far down below the banks of the running river, not far from the rest of their stores had been left. So while the others went on with their work, Fili and Kili were sent, guided by a raven, to find the ponies and bring them back all that they could. They were 4 days gone, and by that time they knew the joint armies of the lake men and the elves were hurrying towards the mountains. But now their hopes were higher, for they had food for some weeks with care, chiefly cram, of course, and they were very tired of it, but cram is much better than nothing. And already the gate was blocked by a wall of squared stones laid dry, but very thick and high across the opening. There were holes in the wall through which they could see or shoot, but no entrance. They climbed in or out with ladders, and hauled off stuff with ropes. For the issuing of the stream they had contrived a small low arch under the new wall, but near the entrance they had altered so the narrow bed let a wide pool stretch from the mountain wall to the head of the fall over to which the stream went towards Dale.
Approach to the gate was now only possible without swimming, along a narrow ledge of the cliff to the right as one looked outwards from the wall. The ponies they had brought only to the head of the steps above the old bridge, and unloading them there had bidden them return to their masters and send them back riderless to the south. There came a night when suddenly there were as many lights as fires and torches away. There came a night when suddenly there were as many lights as fires and torches away south and dale before them.
"They have come," said Balin, "and their camp is great. They must have come into the valley under the cover of dusk from along the banks of the river."
That night the dwarves slept little. The morning was still pale, and they saw a company approaching. From behind their wall they watched them as they came up to the river valley's head and climbed up slowly. Before long they could see that both men of the lake, armed as if for war, and elvish bowmen were among them. At length the foremost of these climbed the tumbled rocks and appeared at the top of the falls, and very great was their surprise to see the pool before them, and the gate blocked by a wall of newly hewn stone. As they stood pointing up and speaking to one another, Thorin hailed them.
"Who are you,"
he cried in a very loud voice,
"that come as in war to the gates of Thorin, son of Thrain, king under the mountain? And what is your desire?"
But they answered nothing. Soon some turned swiftly back, and others were gazing for a while at the gate, and its defenses soon followed them. That day the camp was moved to the east of the river, right between the arms of the mountain. The rocks echoed then with voices and of song, as they had not done for many a day. There was a sound, too, of elvish harps and of sweet music, and it echoed up towards them, though it seemed the chill of the air was warmed, and they caught faintly the fragrance of woodland flowers blossoming in spring. Then Bilbo longed to escape from the dark fortress and to go down and join in the mirth and feasting by the fires. Some of the younger dwarves were moved in their hearts too, and they muttered that they wished things had fallen out otherwise, and they might welcome such folk as friends. But Thorin scowled. Then the dwarves themselves brought forth harps and instruments regained from the hoard, and made music to soften his mood. But their song was not an elvish song, and was much like the song they had sung before in Bilbo's little hobbit hall. Under the mountain, dark and tall, the king has come into his hall. His foe is dead, the worm of dread, and ever so his foes shall fall. His sword is sharp, his spear is long, his arrow swift, and the gate is strong. His heart is bold that looks on gold, and the dwarves no longer shall suffer wrong. The dwarves of yore made mighty spells, while hammers fell like ringing bells, in places deep where dark things sleep, in hollow halls beneath the fells. On silver necklaces they strung, on the light of stars on crowns they hung, the dragon fire from twisted wire, and melody of harps was rung. The mountain throne once more is freed. O wandering folk, the summons heed. Come haste, cross the waste. The king of friend and kin has need. Now call we over mountains cold, come back unto the caverns old. Here at the gates the king awaits, his hands are rich with gem and gold. The king has come up to his hall, under the mountain dark and tall. The worm of dread is slain and dead, and ever so our foes shall fall. The song appeared to please Thorin, and he smiled again and grew merry, and he had been reckoning the distance to the Iron Hills, and how long it would be before Dane could reach the Lonely Mountain, if he had set out as soon as the message reached him. But Bilbo's heart fell, and both at the song and the talk they sounded much too warlike. The next morning an early company of spearmen was seen crossing the river and marching up the valley. They bore with them the green banner of the Elven King and the blue banner of the lake, and they advanced until they stood right before the wall at the gate. Again Thorin hailed them in a loud voice.
"Who are you, that you come armed for war to the gates of Thorin, son of Thrain, king under the mountains?"
This time he was answered. A tall man stood forward, dark of hair and grim of face, and he cried,
"Hail, Thorin! Why do you fence yourself in like a robber in his hold? We are not foes, and we rejoice that you are alive beyond hope.
We came expecting to find none living here, and yet we are met here there in a matter of the parley and a council."
"Who are you, and what would you parley?"
"I am Bard, and by my hand the dragon was slain and your treasure delivered. Is that not a matter that concerns you? Moreover, I am by right descent the heir of Girion of Dale, and in your hands is mingled much of the wealth of the halls and town, of which old Smaug stole. It is not a matter of which may we speak. Further, in his last battle Smaug destroyed the dwellings of the men of Esgaroth, and I am yet a servant of their master. I would speak for him and ask whether you have no thought for the sorrow and misery of his people. They aided you in your distress, and in recompense you have thus far brought the ruin only. Doubt thou this, undesigned." Now, these were fair words and true, if properly and grimly spoken, and Bilbo thought that Thorin would at once admit what justice was in them. He did not, of course, expect that anyone would remember that it was he who discovered all by himself the dragon's weak spot, and that it was just as well, for no one ever did. But just as he also did not reckon with the power and gold had risen upon which a dragon had long brooded, nor dwarvish hearts. Long hours and past days Thorin had spent in his treasury, and the lust of it was heavy on him. Though through he hunted chiefly for the Arkenstone, yet he had an eye for many other wondrous things that were lying there, about which he round old memories of the labours and sorrows of his race.
"You put your worst cause last, and in chief of place," Thorin answered. "To the treasure of my people no man has a claim, because Smaug, who stole it from us, has also robbed him of life or home. The treasure was not his, that evil deed should be amended for the share of it. The price of the goods and the assistance that we receive from late we will fairly pay in due time. But nothing will we give, not even a loaf's worth, under threat of force. While an armed host lives before our doors, we look upon you as foes and as thieves. It is in my mind to ask what share of the inheritance you should have paid to our kindred, had you found the hoard unhunted and us slain." "A just question," replied Bard, "but you are not dead, and we are not robbers. Moreover, the wealthy may have pity beyond right on the needy that befriended them when they had in want, and still my other claims remain unanswered." "I will not parley, as I have said, with armed men at my gate, nor at all with the people of the Elven King, who I remember with small kindness. In this debate they have no place. Begone now ere our arrows fly. And if you would speak with me again, first dismiss the elvish host to the woods where it belongs, and then return, laying down your arms before you approach the threshold." "The Elven King is my friend, and though he has succored the people of the length in their need, there was no claim on though they had no claim but friendship on him," answered Bard. "We will give you time to repent your words, gather wisdom ere we return." Then he departed and went back to the camp. Ere many hours passed, and banner-bearers returned, and trumpeters stood forth and blew a blast. "In the name of Esgaroth and the forest," one cried, "we speak unto Thorin, Thrain's son's Oakenshield, calling him the king under the mountain, and we bid him consider well the claims that have been urged, or be declared our foe.
At last he shall deliver 1/20th portion of the treasure unto Bard, as dragon slayer and heir of Girion. For that portion Bard himself will contribute to the aid of Esgaroth, but if Thorin would have friendship and honor these lands, as his sires of old, he would give also some of his own comfort of the men of the lake. Then Thorin seized a bow of horn, and shot an arrow at the speaker. It smote into his shield, and struck there quivering. "Such is your answer," he called in return. "I declare the mountain besieged. You shall not depart from it until you call to your side a truce and parley. We will bear no weapons against you, but we will leave you to your gold. You may eat that if you will." With that the messengers departed swiftly, and the dwarves were left to consider the case. So grim had Thorin become, that even if they had wished, the others would not have dared find fault with him. But indeed most of them seemed to share his mind, except perhaps Fat or Bomber and Feely and Keely. Bilbo, of course, disapproved of the whole turn of affairs. He had now more than enough of the mountain, and being besieged inside it was not all his taste. "The whole place stinks of dragon," he grumbled to himself, "and it makes me sick, and Cram is beginning to simply stick in my throat."